machine learning to do. Traditionally, we do a statistical model. We do a lot more machine learning nowadays in this area. But then also new area that in the past, no model. Compliance, conduct surveillance is monitoring people behavior, make sure that they are ethical, they are not fraudulent, they are really serving customer, not taking advantage of customer. So if traders, they trade on behalf of customer and they are not front running, all the things are ethical. So that's clearly a lot of NLP. So compliance is also NLP, a lot of natural language processing, conduct surveillance, a lot of that. Customer support. Example, if you credit cardnya hilang, minta ganti, you call center. So your call will be listened to machine learning, routed to the right people, and machine learning helping the people that serve customer to provide answer, as well as to detect whether the call is fraudulent or not. We do a lot of complaint handling, right? Customer complaint, be it through email or phone call and all those things. And of course, chatbot. So rapid adoption across the board. We have lots of machine learning models in banking across the board. So this is a day in and day out that what we do every day. So now when we use model, because all AI are machine learning, and machine learning is basically statistical model, right? So learning from data. We believe that all models are wrong. All models are wrong, or they will be wrong. And when they are wrong, they create harm. They damage, they create harm. Can be, if it's for credit risk, for credit model, we can lose money because of credit risk. For trading, lose money because of trading. If it's for approving credit, it's the same thing. It can create harm in terms of discrimination. So we're going to talk about that. So because all models are wrong, AI will be wrong. So we have to be ready, and we have to manage them. We have to understand how the AI will be wrong and what to do about it. In the US, it has guidance on how to manage model risk. Very, very strict. Some of you that has Google SR 11.7, or OCC 11-12. Those are the same document. It's a regulatory guidance, the equivalent of Bank Indonesia, the equivalent of OJK, right? Releasing that guidance how to manage model risk. And that was released 10 years ago. So we celebrate the 10 years anniversary of that. So because it's 10 years ago, it's very, very mature discipline process in US banks, particularly for large banks, how to manage model risk. And this is very, very important because let me give you a few examples. What is the risk? Yeah, and this is in the US, happen all the time. People are very sensitive about this. A lot of AI problem, a lot of AI accidents. Since you guys are coming into this will be very useful as you think about it, building AI or applying AI. A lot of problems. And in the US, so Facebook facial recognition. So you know the Facebook photo tagging and all of those things. Spark a lot of controversy because violating privacy. So Facebook decided to shut down, close facial recognition. Facebook will not do facial recognition anymore. Just like Amazon and IBM and Microsoft, they closed their facial recognition AI. They're not using that anymore because it's a privacy violation and people are very sensitive about it. Recently on Australia, Clearview is a big leader in a facial recognition. The Australian government ordered that Clearview need to delete all the things that Australian citizen. So that's also privacy violation. Pak Marsudi talk about ethical. This is really an example of people training AI to provide ethical answer. They train it using Reddit posts, and it turned out the AI, even though you train it, they are providing crazy answer. Okay, a lot of answer that AI gave is very, very bad. It's very unethical. So that's becoming problematic when you do use AI to do question and answer and give the answer that is really dangerous for the society. So that's problem. Very well known on the there's an article in terms of discrimination. Okay, how the people provide the things provide healthcare. So big controversy, care AI application in healthcare, and they have to shut it down because of differentiation, discriminating people, particularly black. A few weeks ago, big event with Tesla. They have to recall the vehicle because there's some problem with their neural networks. So related to safety. So Tesla have to recall. Netflix is very popular in Indonesia, I'm assuming. It has a big controversy in the US because it's a lawsuit. And Netflix algorithms kill people. So they recommend movie to watch. And because watching that movie, 13 reasons why to suicide. And somebody sued Netflix now because their kids suicide because of watching that movie. So recommender system can be very dangerous. It's a big controversy in the US in terms of recommender system by Facebook, by Apple, and all of those. Newsfeed is recommender system. It created problem of misinformation, created problem of the country becoming more divided. So recommender system can be very dangerous because people, once you click it, you hear things that you would like to hear, and the algorithm keep turning into that. So as you work on recommender system, which many of you do probably, think about it. Think about the problem that you create with the recommender system. A week or so ago is a news. Zillow. Zillow is the biggest online listing for when you sell a house. So when you sell a house, you post it in Zillow. So they have problem with their algorithm with the Zillow price. They lost in a day $12 billion. Okay, $12 billion. That's a big one. I think I don't know that's in trillion. You multiply that by 14,000, right? So it's a trillion rupiahs loss that they have in a day because their stock price down because they have problem with the. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the problem of their home price. The Zillow is basically they are going to the business of buying and selling house too. People listing, they buy it, and then they fix it and they sell it. They bought it in overpriced way. They bought so many houses, they cannot sell it, and they are in trouble. They have to close the business. A lot of loss, a lot of money, and they have to lay off seperempat pegawainya. It's big news. Yeah. So this is all AI problem that happened very, very recently. If you look at all this news, the date is 2021, November. Okay, October 2021. So November. Okay, so it's just very recent. All the thing happened very recently, happen all the time. So this is the ugly side of AI that we need to think about, that we need to manage. That's why I want to talk about how to risk manage AI. Okay. we need to care. I just give a few examples: data protection, data suitability, building AI start with data, building machine learning start with data. So data security, data privacy. Okay, a lot of countries have very strict regulation, like Europe has GDPR, United States has CCPA. I don't know in Indonesia, in terms of data privacy, it will come more and more. So you have to be very careful, because that's what happened with Facebook, with several other company, with the AI accident that we have, because they violate data privacy. Online marketing is violating data privacy a lot. It can be do that, because you look at the cookies, what website you visit, and all of those things, and you know, oh, these people, and then advertisement coming with a certain medication, obat, ya, ditawari obat ini. Well, I never disclose what my illness is, and health situation is very private. And now, if you use that, you offer it, you violate privacy. So that's something that you need to think about. Data bias. I think Pak Marsudi talked about this, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more here later on. In the US, if we do lending, we cannot use protected class information. We cannot use race, we cannot use sex, we cannot use age, how old, umur berapa, tidak boleh dari origin, dari suku, origin, disability, and all of those cannot be used, yeah, because that you're going to discriminate. But even if you don't use that information, you use a lot of other variable, and that variable can be a proxy to demographic. So it's very dangerous. There's all those bias in AI. The problem we have, it's not that they use race information. It's not that they use age information, but other data, other variable. With that data variable, you can figure out the race, or you can figure out the age. So that's very in US is very strict, that you cannot do that. Okay, so we talk about algorithm bias. Algorithm can amplify bias, not only that the data bias, but algorithm can make it worse. I give you an example. In US, we have credit score called FICO score. Depending on how let's say, think about decision tree, I split it. If you bigger FICO score bigger than such and such, then I approve. FICO score lower than such and such, I decline. Well, FICO score up to certain value is okay. The higher the value is very biased, because majority are white, and the black will be disadvantaged. So you have to be careful, because algorithm train it make the situation worse. So in bias, we have to think about what we call it as disparate treatment, intentional discrimination that we should avoid. We cannot, but it also has what we call it as disparate impact, unintentional discrimination, using variable that unintentionally biased. So we have a lot of problems. I picked a few examples here. AI that used for resume screening, for hiring, big problem. So there's a big incident. If you remember, Amazon a while back, they have to shut down that AI. So AI for hiring is a very dangerous thing. So you have to think about it, as many of you probably think about building AI to do resume screening, CV screening. So think about that, okay? Gender, skin, Pak Marsudi talk about this. It's very well known, okay? For criminal justice system, for healthcare, all of things are facial recognition. Why Facebook closed the facial recognition? Why a lot of company no longer want to do facial recognition anymore? Because it's racist, it's bias. Bias in healthcare. This is becoming who get treated or less treated, or different kind of treatment. That's very discriminatory, because the data is biased. Banks, I talk about, I mentioned about bank fairness is very, very important. We have to check it. We have to test it. That I'm not making discrimination based on age, religion, sex, etc. Right? So that is a very, very important things that on the dealing with bias. Then we talk about explainability. When you're using machine learning, be it gradient boosting machine, or be it neural networks, machine can be very opaque. It's not understandable. So people apply explainability tool. So nowadays, a lot of people apply explainability tool, and it's called as a post hoc explainer or post hoc explainability. We have to be extra careful with that, using that tool, because those tools are not reliable. They are approximation, inexact, and can be misleading. So now some article that in the article, the one at the top, I saw that's about Zillow, why explainable AI is dispensable Zillow. They apply explainable AI, yet when they have problem with the model, they cannot explain it, and they lost a lot of money, right? And in healthcare, there's a lot of controversy on this. So think about when you build AI, if you can build using techniques that inherently interpretable. The model is interpretable, easy, can be understood. So I put a paper that I wrote. So check it in archive.org. There are many techniques. This paper is give a summary, and you can check follow the article. So explainable AI, interpretable, big problem. It's controversial on the techniques as well. So be careful when you apply Lime. Be careful when you apply SHAP and all those techniques, okay? Because those are not reliable. Okay. Then when you do testing, when you do testing, how do you test your AI? Building AI is not Kaggle competition. Building AI and real world for real world is not Kaggle competition. It's not only looking, I split the data, I built AI with training, I tested with testing data set. That's Kaggle competition. That's not real world. Why? Because you split it, you assume your data is static. In real world, once you put AI in production, the data change. So model that is the best during training, it can operate and perform very miserably in real world, and that's very common. So building AI is not Kaggle competition for real world. So think about it. A Kaggle competition is like if you take martial art, karate, for example, you use it for, that's a practice. But real world street fight, you want to try to do that street fight, you're going to get killed. So be careful. So when you build AI, machine learning, you need to think about model development and model validation that need to include one, conceptual soundness. Is the model fit for purpose? I give you an example on this using Zillow, because this is very interesting. Zillow is have a home price estimation, and they use it to people listing their house in Zillow, and with that, home price is very important to attract customer. The higher the value, customer that sell the house will be happier. Okay, I'm listing it with you. So what is the risk in that? The risk, if the house price is too low, people will not list it, right? So the risk is the price is too low, people will not list it. So they tend to be making the prices higher. So you check Zillow, the price will be higher because to attract people. Now, Zillow also use it to buy house. Now, if you want to buy low, sell high. The risk is price is too high. So you need to think about model and what can go wrong. Is the model fit for purpose, and what can go wrong? How do I design it? How do I test it? Secondly, talk about causality, because we're going to use a lot of input. Is it causal or is just correlation? So think about causality testing, and a lot of testing out there. to test for causality. And then we talk about interpretability. The model need to be interpretable, because when model is interpretable, the user enhance the user knowledge. When the model is wrong, when the model not working at certain time, because model will not work all the time. When model not working, the user know what to do because they have knowledge. So interpretable is important. You have to do outcome testing beyond performance, because data drift, data change. So you have to test it with robustness. Smallest perturbation, smallest changes, you perturb the data, that will produce the largest error. You need to know that. So that's called robustness test. Smallest perturbation with largest will produce largest error, because data will be noisy. Data will change to make sure your AI will still work in that situation. Stress testing. Now we're talking about large perturbation. If you do want to do for forecasting, suddenly things change. You need to make sure your model still works. In our case, COVID-19, right? COVID-19 came, everything changed. Big stuff changed. Make sure your model still works. So before you deploy it, you already do large perturbation. How bad you understand how bad the model will be, so that we are ready. When things happen, we know what to do. It's not scrambling. And then outcome testing also need to talk about fairness. Test for fairness. You're not going to use demographic, but we're going to test it. Is my model discriminatory against race, against religion, against all those things? So fairness test is very, very important. And a lot of tests, fairness tests, most of the time people do demographic parity tests, but there are several fairness tests and a lot of open source tools to do fairness tests. And then ongoing monitoring, how the model will perform throughout. You monitor it, including when we have a data drift, right? So this is when you build AI that will be reliable and safe in production. You need to think about all of this. So this is the practice that we do in banking. It's very, very established practice that we have practiced the last 10 years. So before I stop, I give you a parting thought here. Yeah, the road to hell is paved with good intention. We all have good intention. We build something with all good intention, but something will go wrong. So this is why we say the road to hell paved with all good intention. Even with all good intention, you will have you may encounter crisis and may encounter accident or whatever because the model is designed, AI is designed for this, but create unintended consequence. I want to use it to approve or not approve credit, but it's create discrimination, right? AI incident can be avoided and managed if you follow structure process that we talked about before. If you're interested in, there is a database, okay? When AI system fail, you can look at all the incidents, a lot of that, okay? A database, all the incident in AI. Use it to learn so that you're not making the same mistake. That always think of risk. What can go wrong? Always think about risk. Always think about what can go wrong, so that we can test it. We can discover it upfront. We can test it upfront. We can come up with prevention and mitigation upfront, because it will happen. It will happen. The only thing sure that something will go wrong when you're dealing with model. So let me stop right there if we have question.
Thank you, Pak Agus. And the last part is very spiritual, Pak, talking about hell and good intention. So what I understand that in your perspective, AI is not only discussion in engineer and scientists, but for the domain expert, even though for the regulator. And for your information, Pak Agus, in this event as well, we published the AI ethical guideline for Indonesia ecosystem. Right. I have short question and for you, Pak Agus, regarding the AI ethical. So anyone here for audience, we open for one question, perhaps ya Pak Agus ya, because we still have more time. So
Yeah.
regarding AI ethical guideline in US, Pak Agus, if we talking about the government, that can govern the technology, is there something happen in AI ethical regulation of AI in US that you can share?
I think sometime when let me do it somewhat differently. When we talk about ethics, sometimes we talk a lot about ethics. But what important is really the execution. The governance. The company has a governance process, like in bank, right? It has a governance process. So it's not only talk about ethics as principle, but it has process, it has governance, role and responsibility. Who's doing what? When your AI create trouble, who's going to be responsible, right? So that is very important, right? So the governance process, not only the ethics, because the ethical is guidance, is nice on paper, but at the end of the day, how you execute it. So as you think about that, Fajar, think about that. Yes, you start from the ethics, you start from the statement of that, but how you make it live. In the US, in banking, we have model risk management, right? Every bank has model risk management, and I'm the head for Wells Fargo. Every bank has my equivalent, and I report to chief risk officer, and chief risk officer report to the board, not the CEO, the board. So I am independent. Yeah, I can call. So when the business want to do that something unethical or not, I say stop. You cannot do it. I have the authority. Yeah, people can and cannot do. Yeah, and the bonus year end, I have to sign off. Yeah, it impact people pay. Yeah, so it's real. In banking, it's real on this. And independent. Business cannot overrule me. I have the final saying. So that's what big tech doesn't have. That's what other industry doesn't have. Yeah, bank has that because it's required. Okay, so think about that: the governance, the execution. Does that make sense?
It very makes sense, and it's interesting, Pak. It's new for me that the risk management have direct access to board, Pak.
Yes.
Even in some dilemma situation, you can overrule the business strategy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's very interesting.
And the head of responsible AI, me, right? The head of model risk management, very senior, report to the chief risk officer who report to the board. Okay. Right. So that stature is very important if you're very serious about it. That's why the governance structure is very important.
Understood. So perhaps we still have another 2-3 minutes. One more short question, Pak Agus. I'm interested on the risk management role in banking. Some of or mostly of the risk management division in financial industry perhaps still have the conventional way to define the risk. But what you said about you implement open for gradient boosting and any other machine learning technique that unquote black box, it's something interesting for me. Do you have a tips in short so you can also do the closing statement for the risk management that can open for the machine learning technique? Go ahead.
Yes, we do. That's why we wrote a lot of things, right? We wrote paper and all those things. Even deep learning, we can make it really explainable if you control it, fully interpretable. And I have a paper in archive that you can check. So you just need to know how to do it. Gradient boosting machine, you can do it too. For example, the Microsoft style, Rich Caruana, make what they call it EBM, explainable boosting machine. You can control the architecture so that it's really interpretable model. But you don't just apply it as a black box. You can control the architecture to make it interpretable. So Caruana has the EBM. It has open source code that you can use to do EBM, you know? So you make that boosting machine interpretable. There are many, many ways to do it. And this is evolving rapidly. So new development. My team is very, very active on this. We have a team that's their focus is really building interpretable models. But there is a lot of technique. Now, if you do black box, yes, you can do black box too. If the risk is lower. If it's wrong, it's not going to harm people. It's not going to harm the company. Yeah. Marketing offer, for example, it's probably okay. People click or not clicking. Yeah. That's probably okay. No harm. Okay. Click or not click. So you probably can use black box with post hoc explainability. Use sharp or lime to explain. But if it has potential to harm people, discriminatory or things, then don't do it. Do the inherently interpretable model.
Very inspiring speech and very inspiring closing statement, Pak Agus. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate that you join us tonight, perhaps in US, Pak, ya. So after this session, have a good night for you there. And thank you everyone for audience.
Thank you. Anything that I can do to help, Fajar, let me know.
For sure. Yeah. Let's collaborate after the event. Thank you everyone.
All right. Thank you.
We close the session. Have a nice day. Thank you.